Hey everybody, welcome back to Dreamseed VR. I'm your host Sarah Finn, and today I figured we could talk a little bit about robots. So we're in the year 2021 now, and for anybody paying attention, it feels kind of like the future. We've had robots for many decades now, but I figured it would be interesting to go into the history of not only modern robotics a little bit, but also ancient automaton. Kind of lay down a foundation for where the hell these weird things have come from. So to begin with, let's just start with the word robot. I really wanted these to be able to read my computer screen, but I'm just going to have to do without. So forgive me for squinting. The word robota is a Czech word, and it refers to the labor a medieval peasant was forced to do without pay. Robot is a noun, and it refers to a machine, sometimes resembling a human being, that's able to replicate certain human movements and functions automatically. It's also a machine capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically, especially one programmable by a computer. The word robot was introduced to the public by the Czech interwar writer Karel Čapek in his play RUR, Rosem's Universal Robotics, which was published in 1921, if I remember right. There is conflicting information on the internet. Some people say it was 1920. I think it was written in 1920 and then published in 1921. Either way, the play begins in a factory that uses a chemical substitute for protoplasm to manufacture living, simplified people called robots. I'm like, fuck my glasses. What is wrong? I am a robot. Meow. Attack. Meow. 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 Anyway, does it help when I do that? Now, there are a few other words that are going to be relevant to the conversation that I'll go ahead and just kind of break down a little bit. Automaton is a mechanical figure constructed to act as if by its own motive power, its own volition. And a word that I want to drag into the conversation that's not typically used in this context, but I still feel like is relevant for our conversation later on when we get into science fiction references to robots, is an interesting word that I learned called paraclete. I changed my mind. You guys just have to deal with this. Look, I'm like Goku Midnight. You just have to deal with this. Sorry. So the word paraclete means advocate or helper. In Christianity, the term paraclete most commonly refers to the Holy Spirit. Paraclete comes from the Greek word parakletos, and that can signify one who consoles or comforts, one who encourages or uplifts, hence refreshes, and one who intercedes on behalf as advocate in court. So that'll come up a little bit later. I think there's some interesting parallels, especially in reference to it being a helper and being sort of like the console, you know. Anyway, there are a few examples of automatons that are made prior to the 16th century. Among the earliest references is to a wooden model from Arctaeus of Tarentum. It's a wooden pigeon that was made, seems like between the year 350 BCE and 400 BCE. This guy was a Greek friend of Plato, and the bird was said to sit suspended by the end of a pivoted bar and worked by means of a jet stream or compressed air. There's more complete information about other similar devices found in the writings of Heron of Alexandria, and that's the 1st century CE, who described devices powered by water, falling weights, as well as steam. The Greek mythological inventor Daedalus was known for making automaton. He's the guy who made wings for himself and his son flew too close to the sun, and the warmth from the solar rays melted the wax that was holding the feathers into the wings, and he plummeted from the sky. So if you remember him, same dude, he would make automatons, like animals and things like that. So accounts of automatons in China actually date as early as the 3rd century BCE. There were automatons during the Han Dynasty. It's said that there was a mechanical orchestra that was made for the emperor. And by the 6th and 7th centuries CE, automatons became more widespread. There's even a book titled The Book of Hydraulic Elegancies that was published. In the Tang period from the 7th to the 10th century CE, automatons continued to be popular in imperial circles. There are records of flying birds, an otter that caught fish, figures engaged in numerous activities ranging from a monk begging to girls singing. And after the Yuan period, 1279 to 1368, the creation of automatons seemed to wane. So in the Islamic world, there are also a number of inventors active from the 9th century. Best documented are the water-operated automatons, many of them moving peacocks, invented by Al-Jazari. So this guy worked from the 13th century for princes of the Ertugrul dynasty in Mesopotamia. References to automatons devised by Western Europeans in the Middle Ages cite such distinguished names as Roger Bacon, Albertus Magnus, who are both credited with constructing androids. Bacon made a talking head and Albertus made an iron man. Even in the 1800s, mechanical automatons continued to charm Europe, including a pooping duck, which I'll include over here. Pooping duck. Thanks, Britannica, for the information. So I also wanted to make mention of an interesting concept from mythology and folklore that relates to the creation of artificial beings, and that's the golem. So the golem in Jewish folklore is an image endowed with life. The term is used in the Bible, Psalms 139:16, and in the Talmudic literature to refer to an embryonic or incomplete substance. As early as like the 16th century, there are references to golems in mythology and folklore. So the golem is a mythological creature created out of clay that's brought to life. The most famous version of the legend is set in the late 16th century Prague. The High Rabbi Lo, a man learned in the Kabbalistic lore, forms a man-like creature out of clay and brings him to life by inserting a shem, a capsule, with the written magic formula into his mouth to guard the Jewish people from their enemies. So now that we have a little bit of background about automaton from the past and the ancient history and mythology, I figured I would give us a little bit of background as to what's been going on with modern robotics. So in 1961, we see the creation of the first industrial robot on the assembly line for General Motors. This robot was named the Automaton E, and it was created by an American inventor named George DeVol, who was in operation on the General Motors assembly line at the time. And that was taking place in Inland Fisher Guide plant in Ewing Township, New Jersey. So this robot is interesting because, like I said, it was the first industrial robot, but just a number of years later, in 1974, another robot was created called the IRB-6. Now, this is technically the first electric industrial robot that was controlled by a microcomputer. And this is important because it would later integrate with other systems, including algorithms that were created to give visual data to the assembly line's manufacturing robot with something called CoSight. So basically, this is the first time you have your industrial robot that can make stuff and its ability to see the assembly line, to be able to pick objects with the, like rudimentary AI. Yeah, so in essence, that was pretty much the beginning of creating robotic bodies with effector sensory control systems. So AI developed along with visual systems to make robots capable of more complex tasks, and robots now take on both industrial and domestic labor. And now, function dictates form in both of these fields, domestic as well as industrial labor. Robots have sort of become a blank canvas for which that we can project our needs onto them when we ourselves don't want to take on something. So you want to defuse the bomb? We send in the robot. You don't want to send humans to a dangerous void of space? Send the robot. Modern robotics have been pioneered in the past several decades by a number of companies that are pushing the technology to staggering heights at an insane pace, including Boston Dynamics. So, Boston Dynamics is an American engineering and robotics design company that was founded in 1992 as a spin-off of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It was headquartered in Waltham, Massachusetts, and it's owned by the Hyundai Motor Group as of December 2020. So Hyundai bought it just 2 months ago. Prior to that, I believe it was owned by Google, and Google bought it back in 2013. So The company was founded by a guy named Mark Rainbert, who spun off the company, like I said, from MIT. So they also were working in tandem with DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Some of the more famous robots that Boston Dynamics created in association with DARPA include things like the Big Dog, which is the one that we saw a lot of videos of people like trying to kick it over, and just found that amusing and funny at the same time. Oh boy, do I have a great gift for you regarding that. I'll stick it right here. Who doesn't love Sarah Connor trying to save the future by getting them to not kick the DARPA dog? So in addition to Big Dog, which I obviously nicknamed DARPA Dog because I'm a goofball, there is another robot called the Cheetah, right? There's Little Dog. There's also Petman, LS3, Atlas, and Spot, as well as Handle. So one of the dogs, I'm just going to call them dogs, one of the robot dogs that has sort of been in the spotlight again recently is Spot. They found a way to sort of make it capable of self-charging recently, and that was sort of in the headlines. Like, that's not disturbing. And it also has a new arm attachment at the top of its head. So it can, plug itself in, I guess. I don't know how its self-charging system works, but I'll go ahead and throw in some update links regarding those developments with the Boston Dynamic Doggy crew. So some of the other interesting robots lately have been made by Hanson Robotics. They're the ones that brought us Sophie, whatever her name is, creepy robot lady. I'll insert her picture there. As well as the much beloved and famed Philip K. Dick robot, whom I believe is no longer on public circuit anymore. Everybody's just giving Sophia all the attention. And then there's also cute robots that we've seen, like from Hyundai, which is obvious why they wanted to buy Boston Dynamics. So that is it for my little short history of Automaton and robotics as part 1. In part 2, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about some of my favorite robotic protagonists from science fiction, and that'll include the Maria robot from Metropolis, as well as RoboCop, that Murphy officer guy. And then we'll talk a little bit about James Cameron's Terminator, and it'll be exclusively about the first one because in my mind the other ones just don't exist. But I hope you enjoyed the more real-world, meaty, historical origin of robotics. And then if you want to get into the fun, science fiction side of it, tune in for part 2. I'll try to pump that out later this week. And in the meantime, follow us on Instagram, Dreamseed_VR. We've just dropped a really fun VR meme regarding Joe Rogan, DMT, and Alex Jones. It's a cool collaboration with Hen Dog, an amazing comedic musician. And go ahead and check us out at patreon.com/Seraphin. That's where you can support the channel, support the work that I've been doing, as well as see about any fun exclusive perks that I've got going on. And check out dreamseedvr.com. Thanks for your attention span. I'm grateful to have you here, and I will catch up with you all later.